Hey YouTube, what's up? It's CS back here with another installment, and here are my picks for the Ultimate Fighter 14 finale. And the award for the cheapest card in the last 50 or 60 goes to, this one. It's primarily comprised of the TUF 14 cast members, and if you guys know that if you're a first-time fighter in the UFC, you're probably making no more than $8 grand, something like that. So, yeah, you know, UFC is going to make some profit that night. Of course, this is headlined by the coaches fighting it out. Michael Bisping and Jason Mayhem Miller. Of course, Tony Ferguson and Yves Edwards are the only other two fighters who aren't, you know, contestants on the show that are fighting it out. So I'm looking forward to that. But the rest of this stuff, not really. You know, I did enjoy this season of The Ultimate Fighter, but, you know, not all of these guys are anything special. But for the most part, there was, you know, a handful of solid talent in this season that I can definitely stick around in UFC for, you know, at least 3 or 4 fights. So I do appreciate that because, you know, the talent in the last few seasons have been kind of lackluster, and you maybe have, you know, 1, 2, or 3 guys from each of the past, you know, 4 or 5 seasons that are still in the UFC. You know what I'm saying? So I'm glad that we actually saw a decent season this time. Of course, the antics and animosity between the coaches and even the contestants, you know, we expected that, but it was actually a good season in terms of competition. So that put a smile on my face. But guys, let's get to these picks now, shall we? Of course, you know how it works. I only do main card predictions, so if you want my preliminary card picks, just check in the description below for them, and you shall find them there. But let's start off in Bantamweight, the first bout of the main card. It's between Johnny Bedford and Louis Gaudinot. Alright folks, this is an intriguing match on paper, you know, pretty contrasting in terms of styles. You have John Bedford on one side, who is, you know, the wrestler, grappler, needs to get to the ground, use good top control, work for submissions, maybe a TKO. That's what John Bedford wants to do. Although he has a crazy reach advantage, you know, he's clearly, if you've seen his fights, not the most comfortable guy on the feet if he is facing a guy who has capable stand-up, which Louis Gaudinot for the most part does, but he's not exactly John Dodson who just lit Bedford up. You know, he's not electric. He's not as electric or explosive as John Dodson is. John Dodson's just, you know, a freak when it comes to the stand-up game for his size to move in and out and, you know, land combinations at will against someone who has like a 10-inch reach advantage. You know, that was rather impressive, I think, but I don't see Louis Gaudinot being able to do that, you know, for the most part on the feet. I think it should look relatively even. I would assume that, you know, Bedford will utilize his reach more effectively, but I think he's going to be able to close the distance and take Louis Gaudinot down. I saw Dustin Pague do it in the first round in that fight, and that was from the clinch. I think he used a trip. You know, I just don't see how Louis Gaudinot is going to be able to stuff a double leg, say in the clinch, or just from a shot from Johnny Bedford. I think Bedford gets it, utilizes good top control, works for a TKO, but I think he eventually gets a rear naked choke victory. I think it happens in round 2, so that's my pick. Johnny Bedford, rear naked choke, round 2. Alrighty folks, let's move on to the next bout. It's between Yves Edwards and Tony Ferguson. I'll keep this one short. You know, you got Yves Edwards on one side. Clearly the UFC is old and the UFC is new on the other side, and Tony Ferguson. Tony Ferguson has, you know, that Division II wrestling background, but it's not like it matters because he ain't going to use it. He likes to keep things standing. His technical boxing is improving. We saw that in the Aaron Riley fight where he picked him apart up until Aaron Riley's jaw was broken and he couldn't continue in round 2. So that was a relatively impressive bout. And of course, before that, when he was at welterweight, he was just knocking dudes out on his way to win the Ultimate Fighter. On the other side, you have Yves Edwards. He's been fighting since like '99, and you know, the guy's still a relatively impressive fighter, I think. You know, his skill or power haven't diminished, but his chin has. And that's not good because if Sam Stout can straight up KO you, I don't see why Tony Ferguson can't. I think it's a matter of time before it happens. You know, Tony Ferguson's emphasis this training camp was striking, and I think he's going to be able to put Yves Edwards out eventually sometime in round 1. Up until then, it's going to look, you know, relatively even with him and the Thug Jitsu master, and you know, Yves Edwards is going to utilize angles and attack from different areas like he usually does with punches or kicks, but eventually Tony Ferguson's just going to land, you know, a solid left or right, you know, cross or hook, and I think it's going to put Yves Edwards on his back, and I think that's where Tony Ferguson is able to finish him with more strikes. So that's my pick, Tony Ferguson, first round TKO, punches. Alrighty, folks, let's move on to the next bout. It's between TJ Dillashaw and John Dodson in Bantamweight. Of course, it's the Bantamweight final. Let's start off with Dodson first. Of course, he is a Greg Jackson's MMA product. You know, for the most part, he is a striker, but since he is a Jackson's MMA product, he must have other facets in his game, which he does. If he does get taken down, you know, he can get back up, and his wrestling defense in general is pretty good. He also has some jiu-jitsu game, so, you know, he's definitely capable there, but he's going to want to strike against TJ Dillashaw. He's the more capable guy there. He's faster, he's quicker, he's just going to, you know, pick him apart on the feet if it stays there. But I just don't think it's going to happen. I think TJ Dillashaw is too good of a wrestler. You know, he comes out of that Team Alpha Male camp, and like those Team Alpha Male guys, he's capable in other areas of mixed martial arts. And yeah, I think that's what we're going to see. I think he's going to hang with Dodson for the most part on feet, but he's going to have takedown on his mind, and I think he's going to be able to get him off. Wouldn't surprise me to see John Dodson, you know, get back up, but I think he's going to get taken down again. You know, TJ Dillashaw, I think, is a bloody strong wrestler, and I think he's a hell of a prospect in that bantamweight division. He was actually my pick to win the show, and for the most part, I think he's going to execute once more. He's just going to take Dodson down, utilize good top control, try to work for a TKO or submission, but Dodson's never been finished, and I don't think TJ's going to finish him, but I think TJ's going to look rather impressive. I'm going to say he wins 29-28 unanimous decision, and just for the most part hangs with Dodson on the feet, and like I said, take him down, top control, rinse and repeat. That's how he's going to do it. So 29-28, TJ Dillashaw. Alright, folks, let's move on to the featherweight final. It's between Diego Brandao and Bermudez. Bermudez is a wrestler, and Diego Brandao is a striker out of the Jackson's camp. So yeah, this is kind of like, you know, the bantamweight final. Let's take a look at Brandao first. Of course, in his last win, he had a rather impressive one against Brian Caraway. Caraway took a beating. Once Diego had more confidence in that wrestling defense and that takedown defense, you know, he started to open up more with his strikes, and, you know, just eventually just peppered Brian Caraway's face more with combos and just eventually put him away via TKO. That was pretty nasty, so that was a solid win for Diego Brandao. Of course, before that, he had those quick wins over Seiler and that other guy in, you know, getting to the house in that episode. But yeah, I see that happening against Diego Brandao, you know, something quick, something round one. Once he realizes that Dennis Bermudez can't take him down, he's going to open up more with the strikes, and eventually I don't think Dennis is going to be able to take more punishment, and I see him falling to a TKO. So that's my pick, Diego Brandao via first round TKO. Dennis is going to do what, you know, Brian Caraway tried to do but couldn't, and that's put Diego on his back. And yeah, like I said, once he realizes he can't, you know, he's going to fight Diego's fight, and he's going to lose. So there's my pick, Diego Brandao via first round TKO punches. Alrighty, folks, let's move on to the next bout, which is between Jason Mayhem Miller and Michael the Count Bisping at middleweight. Of course, this is the main event between the two Ultimate Fighter coaches. So yeah, I'm actually interested in this bout. You know, I think it's relatively interesting. One side, you have that wrestler, grappler in Mayhem Miller, and then you have the striker in Michael the Count Bisping. But Michael the Count Bisping has good enough defensive wrestling to keep it standing, and I think he's the better athlete, so yeah, I just don't see why he gets wrestled to the ground or put in a dominant position throughout this whole, you know, fight. You know, this is his battle to lose. As long as it's standing and the fight starts standing, and I think it's going to keep it there. So yeah, I got Michael Bisping winning this fight. You know, he's the better boxer, kickboxer, clearly. I don't think Mayhem's going to be able to threaten him there with his skills. And because of that, you know, he's just going to get picked apart over the course of 3 rounds. Bisping doesn't have the greatest power, but, you know, again, is going to be there for, you know, so long standing, I think. It wouldn't surprise me to see him eventually put out Mayhem, but I'm going to pick him via unanimous decision. You know, just stick and move, use combinations, avoid whatever Mayhem throws at him or eats them. I don't know. You know, we see Bisping, he has had troubles with people who have strong right hands. Mayhem's not that kind of guy, and because of that, I don't see him, you know, losing to him. So, yeah, I got Michael the Count Bisping via unanimous decision, at least 29-28. Wouldn't surprise me to see maybe a 30-26, but, yeah, it should look like, you know, the definition of a 30-27 fight, so that's my pick, Michael the Count Bisping, UD. Alrighty, folks, well, that about does it from me. Hope you guys enjoyed my Tough 14 finale picks. For what it is, I hope it's fun, and looks like it will be. You know, those bantamweight and featherweight finals look pretty good, and I'm looking forward to Yves Edwards, Tony Ferguson, and of course, the main event between Bisping and Mayhem. So yeah, looks alright. What can I say? Decent for a free card. Kind of wish it got more exposure, but with the UFC spike troubles, that's why it's not. So there it is. So I hope you guys enjoyed all of that. And yeah, I will see you for a review right after the card airs. And yeah, please subscribe if you haven't already. Give me a thumbs up if you liked the video, and check out my links, which should be on the screen. And yeah, that about does it for me. So thank you guys all so much once again, and take care.